Okay, welcome back again. I was just sitting here honestly watching whatever one this one is, an hour, 25 minutes long, one of my videos, and I'm like, essentially trying to get a bearing on what just happened. Like, I know I just had some realizations. There was already something that I came across. I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. Which was not with this, not about what I was talking about, not from the videos that I just was watching, but from something else that I had totally forgotten about because I was recently reposted I just kind of went through my pictures and I reposted ones. And this one, I thought, well, this is a good one overall. Although there's some things wrong with it. I don't really know if it goes under Greenland. Greenland? Greenland. But one thing that I noticed was I said nucleus energy exchange with mountains. So the underground is this current going across that's going into the nucleus, but then upwelling from the ground and cutting across to the forming Andy Mountains here, or the whatever these mountains are. I'm not sure where they might be part of the Andes, but they're not quite the same formation process, so they're a little like differentiated in some ways, but I think they might just be called the Andes also. But anyway, besides the point, it exchanges across, and I was talking about this in one of my last videos, so that's why I thought it was important to bring up here, is it overlays the mountains, just like I was saying with regard to how it appears, like this node here at the Bighorn Basin that's right here, or Bighorn Forest, whatever, that this overlays and like taps into energetically. How I think even then I was like, I think there's other things I can't think of right now. And what it was right here. So as the energy is draining from South America into this region, it's cutting into the nucleus and going around the nucleus. So it goes up and around the nucleus, and then there's a cross stream that is above where it's cutting in. The portion that doesn't cut in generally goes up and meets resistance from this current, so they kind of go up this way and out, generally speaking. And so there's a like curvature to this structure here. But so the inlet from over here, from right here, all this energy is just streaming across, and it's going to like the very tip of South America over here on the right, on the eastern side, and draining right into the core, but also going around it. And in so doing, though, maybe it's like creating condensation or something to a point where it then creates a back current to like heat exchange, which then brings like a some kind of exchange with these mountains occurs with the nucleus, where the nucleus sends energy that kind of goes between the layers as this is opening up, or to essentially come into South America over here rather than where the energy's exiting. It has an entry point over here on top of it, so it's not even like on the same layer. I know everything I say is backwards world in some ways. But the reason I feel confident about this is because it materially affects the structure of the mountains, that this energy comes over here and it stops generally over here. So if we look at the mountains, they have these features kind of overlaying, dendritically overlaying into the energetically tapping into the mountains. But if we go down here, they become less prominent, although they do have that feature there. Where is this going? This is going over here. It may be that a mountain range, just because of it's a mountain range, energetically tends to create some kind of something that taps into it energetically to feed a dendritic surface to it, although I don't see that in the Appalachians, just glancing up here. Although it's probably present more so in the Rockies. So there may be more nuance that I'm not acknowledging or appreciating. This kind of is reminiscent of the Siberian traps, probably because underneath it was this flame that was like pinching over here, so especially hot over here at the flames tip. Although maybe it would be most hot here. Also, I had this kind of quick thought. I might have mentioned it before. Where it connects here, where the current was flowing. Essentially, it looks like it's severed. Like the reason South America is left behind, its underlayer attached still to North America up here, is because it severed it by this stream going across. I think I have mentioned that in the past. But that was just something I had forgotten about that, I don't know, I just thought I'd bring it up. Okay, so the thing I for sure wanted to mention was this vibrational thing going on with the so where the energy comes in here and then it begins to vibrate. Maybe it looks like it might have vibrated there too a bit, but like the stream entering vibrates, so that there's a two sides of it, and it's just down Africa. Now, that's not the only place that happened. There's also the stream coming underneath Florida and out underneath Mexico into Australia is deflecting off of it, going in underneath it, but also deflecting off of it and going up along the coastline before any of this exists. Up along the coastline and then bouncing off the resistance. And essentially these streams begin to just channel together this way towards here it is, towards the Indonesian archipelago, and create them. They push the archipelago, they physically create a wave that propagates this way, and then it forms a physical wall of material in an arc shape with a eddy at the end and an eddy at this end because of the energy propagating in that direction. But interestingly, because of the way it's multiple streams generally merging into one like direction, it appears to do the same thing here, where it has vibrational like flow into the arc here, just like a focused vibrational channel at the like center pointish of the arc. Okay, with those things in mind, recognizing that that can happen, and like here's another instance of a wave, like a sine wave type of structure occurring naturally on Earth. So like they do happen. So with that in mind, I was looking over here. And I was thinking, well, especially here. Let me go this. Because there's a stream coming in this way, This one's real apparent that it's generally going this way. And then we can see that it's generally going this way over here to fill this region. But what I did not pick up on until recently was I was like, well, like, I noticed this down here, so I've been talking about this. This is very important because of what it leads into. The fact that it leads into what it leads into really makes the fact that it's doing this vibrational thing I'm going to talk about just all the more important to the overall mechanics. So I thought I would talk about that. That's really why I hit record now. I don't know what else I'll say after that, but I did want to point this out. Okay, so with that in mind, it occurred to me that essentially a stream coming in this way that cuts across here is gonna then, like, at its most extreme, it's gonna ride the very edge until it essentially is sent back inward. And so what this does, this, instead of just going straight through, it allows for a like rebound to like bounce off. So it rebounds off of this mound over here, and the energy crosses the stream. And I think this is important for the fact that there's so many like mounds, like any of these like nodes are probably because of crossing currents that are causing eddies that then lead to accumulations of materials in those eddies that then are like building the surface details more mountainous versus like down this center region where the current is less turbulent. It's more just like right through it. So it bounces off and comes back over here, and then it meets resistance again, but it balloons this side out. So I was kind of looking at this like, why is this kind of like not in line with this? And I think it's because it's generally deflecting out of this region over here and then wrapping around to go this way. So like in so doing, it's a current cut, a large wide current cutting across here. That's kind of like this wide, cutting across. That turns around and interacts with a second current that's essentially the same width, but going straight through along this boundary, not protruding into either direction because it's more this way. Just straight through from like over here. So it just goes straight through without deflecting, but because it's going straight through and it's crossing another stream that's just bouncing back and forth, this other stream is just bouncing, bounce, and cutting across this stream as it occurs, significantly shaping what then is the result in landscape. Like this is shaped by the bouncing of the energy out of this side over this way to protrude this out further. Although it looks like it, in so doing, it didn't like fully lift the terrain sufficiently to make it land, but it did make like an island, a substantial amount of land here, just it didn't lift the entire region by this cross current. But so then the cross current generally fills with crossing this one that's just going down and creating these, I guess, this region where it's like it crosses here and then here, like it's more cutting across it. So like this exact kind of stretch right here is lower in the features, and they're much more linear, and then these are kind of just distributed. Although there is this weird empty spot here. But so it generally, though, appears to go along the boundary and just rebound again in and cut across exactly across the heart of this, the Bighorn National Park or whatever, epicenter, which is adjacent to Yellowstone. So it also cuts across Yellowstone, which is here or here or something. It's somewhere around here. It's like the center of Yellowstone, maybe here. But it cuts across it, crossing with that current there. But this current, that's this straight current, is also changing its angle down here because the Earth is expanding. Like, as all these features are happening, this is after 66 million years when the Earth has begun its phase of rapid expansion, when prior it was still like bounded, so it was just building internal pressure until it boom exploded and just simply release the building pressure sufficiently to stabilize. And so while it's expanding, this channel, this current is coming down straight along the very edge, and it begins to shift over. So as it shifts over, it's crossing this stream that maybe isn't quite as influenced by the fact that the Earth is expanding. It doesn't, since it's going this way and bouncing around. Like, it's generally just gonna still bounce. Maybe it wasn't even doing that yet. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the dates of the features and regions that appear to be most connected to that current and its motion through this region. But for sure, it's connected over here. And maybe that's just like as it vibrated, as it rebounded from the supernovas. The supernova made it like one of those things, like above and below the equilibrium, where it just caused even a current to vibrate. I don't know. But really importantly, though, that current cuts across and goes straight to where the mouth is here, where it spits hot fire. Which is why it extends past. So, like, right here is the boundary of Precambrian rock in this region, with this also, and this. So these ones vibrated out of this general location because there was a cross current that came across and caused them to separate. And then it continued across past that region and spread out until it ran into resistance here. So that was essentially the end of that feature's visibility. Okay. I forgot if there's anything else that I was thinking of. That especially, just that it's vibrating here. This stream, the fact that it's doing that this stream goes specifically across here, down here, and then is specifically wrapping into this segment to open the boundary a bit more, and then bouncing off resistance and going into North America, like the previous boundary of. It's like it tried to get into the North America, heart of North America here, but it couldn't. and then it bounced off and went down, but then it bounced off another boundary of resistance and just got fed into the actual channel, where it then crossed with this and created a bunch of novas, just a bunch of novas here. Also, I'm wondering if, like I'd mentioned, like a condensation, like maybe there's something of that nature, like as the process cools off, that it like condensates out a lot of water in this, and it did so in specific locations, or locations where it just gushed out of the earth, maybe, and like in this process somehow, because I was reading things about just a lot of water that's like that appeared like around this time frame of like 2 million years, like when. I'm not sure if that's based on glacial data. Last glacial period was it? Yeah, like it's at the very end. It's almost like the cooling off process. It just condensates a bunch of water out of the materials that are in that just like causes it to conglomerate into actually large quantities of just water, rather than water like intermixed with the basalt down in the mantle, like it like outgassed water that maybe was even partially brought in and or made by the process. Like combining the ether to larger particles might have occurred to a degree where maybe it just caused water to form in large quantities. Part of a larger sequence of yeah, yeah, started, yeah. Antarctic sheets began to form earlier, about 34 million years, which after the supernova, but so maybe once it supernovaed, Antarctica was like not really as impacted as other regions, so it just started to immediately freeze. Late Cenozoic Ice Age is used to include this early phase. Sail glaciation, sometimes referred to as Salian glaciation, covers the middle of the three large in northern Europe and northern. It's more than the last glacial period in some areas, such as Britain. Okay. I'll have to look into this. Not here because I'm gonna slow this down too much to look into that specifically. Did I find a date on this? 25, maybe. Uplift. Okay. Green River runs. Oh, is this the Green River where it's. Whoa. Precambrian Paleozoic history of the Colorado Plateau is best revealed near its southern end, where the igneous and metamorphic. Where the Grand Canyon has exposed rocks with ages that span almost 2 billion years. They were uplifted. Okay, not at all. Uplifted. Doesn't say when. When was the ancestral Rockies? $300 million. Just probably when this current was flowing and disturbing this region, I guess, if that's where that is. Da-da. Near Colorado and New Mexico. Huh. Rose 300 million years. Okay. So the ancestral Rockies rose due to this current over here raising this region, probably almost guaranteed. Although, before I say that, actually, it probably is. It probably is tied to this current. It probably is. Some initial phase when it was like breaking through this wall. Although it was probably forming that. When it's flowing along the wall, maybe it started to influence this region to a degree around to essentially cause the ancestral Rockies. For 270 million years, so basically from then until the Earth started to expand rapidly, the energies were focused near the edge of the North American plate boundary. The current was flowing down here until the Earth rapidly started to grow, and this current then started to shift to the side. Not until just before the rapid supernova, when I guess things were just starting to really build tension within the possible space that the current of basalt materials could flow. And essentially, it was just too much pressure, and it started to build, and maybe that was when this current had some more like capacity to begin to, because of a resistance building up in this direction, the current starts to get kind of deflected out over here into through some weak region in the structural integrity of the crust for whatever reason exactly, just probably because the current's just been hitting it, kind of digging in through the boundary to open channels, and then it starts to get into a region it can fill, and then it really opens the channel at some point. And so maybe that was around 80 million. Current Rockies were raised from 80 to 55. Seems a little early. If it's gonna be that late, it seems like a little early to not after 66. To be before it by 14 million. Radiometric dating. I mean, that's generally in the same time frame. It's like I just said, though. It's probably because the tension's building up and the resistance. It hasn't built up so much that the Earth is physically rapidly expanding, but it's building up. But it has built up enough that the back pressure begins to cause flooding into what would amount to being the region where the Rockies were orogeny occurred. The rug bunches up and forms wrinkles. Further south, the growth of the Rocky Mountains in the United States is a geological puzzle. Mountain building is normally focused between 200 to 400 miles inland from a subduction zone boundary. Geologists continue to gather evidence to explain the rise of the Rockies so much further inland. The answer most likely lies with the unusual subduction of the Farallon plate, or possibly due to the subduction of an oceanic plateau. So we have established it's for sure this current that is causing it at all. So it is this current that is why the Rockies are so far into the continent, especially because it accreted new material over here. So it's kind of like more adjacent than it would otherwise be. Like there's not like accreted new continental crust hanging out over here making the Appalachians further, but there is over here. So because that current that was flowing along the mountain chain, in this instance it wasn't accreting new material, but in this instance it was. And so that likely plays into it, and just the general that this current is going westward to northwest to southeast generally at this point. It's cutting across and into it, just into. So this current's like projection through the earth took it in a path that was more into North America than other cases. Also plays into it being so far in. But let's look at, now that I've said my like initial thoughts, let's look at this Farallon plate. On the answer most likely lies with the unusual subduction of the Farallon plate. Okay, mind you, no offense, they don't know what they're talking about. So like this plate, this it's just false. Like it's just false, and it's because we assume the Earth was a certain radius, and always is this radius that it is now, and it always was, which makes no actual sense if you think about it. Like it must have started somewhere. What, it just was pooped out exactly as Earth as we see it. Like where? How did it get here? I mean, you can't just be like, oh, plate tectonics, and it doesn't actually make sense that the Earth never changed in size. It doesn't make any sense. So it's only reasonable that it's likely the Earth changed inside. Maybe we don't understand how it happened, and what, is it just gonna pile on top? No, it did it other ways. Okay. by bringing the material within it and then blowing up like a balloon, pretty much. So is it really that much more dense? Maybe not. It might be more spacious and less not dense. And so, anyway, those things in mind, then especially the Pacific, we don't know what we're talking about. No offense, geologists. We've based this all off of the fact that the Atlantic conveniently can be just kind of squeezed shut. Like, oh, look at that. This fits into that. This fits into that. Voila. We figured it out. All right, so over here there was this huge gaping hole. And these were all together as one, just all one landmass, just like penguins. They didn't like the water then. They were kind of hydrophobic. But luckily, time passed and they learned to swim. And so they all swam out to their new locations where they were nicely distributed, although this remained a huge gaping hole. No, it was actually Australia was right here. Because we can see that it was right here based on the currents that flowed here across, and then we can just kind of dot pretend this didn't exist yet and go across here, across here, across here, and what do we run into is this spreading zone of this current that was flowing, creating this eye of the world here, the eye of the world. This spreading zone, which was running into Australia and just utterly disintegrating the nucleus of this region and breaking the components apart. So like the crust of the earth at this stage was just getting broken into small pieces, so that this all just kind of became easily movable into new shapes. So it was reshaped into arcs, into this arc. And I mean, like, generally Papua New Guinea is probably the same structure. Like, they're all probably generally the same structure, but they got shaped into an arc. And especially the smaller ones probably got especially made to be part of the arc, as like looking like it's just an arc now. But the current was flowing in here because none of this existed yet. So this concept is just false, although it probably is sufficiently touching on truths to shed significant light on what we're looking at right now. Okay. Pardon me, it's just the Pacific Ocean is utterly false because it was not like that. It just wasn't like that. Until we draw this on an expanding Earth map, which people do, but it's not as like the whole society is working on it as the things where the whole society is working on it. It's just not done as much, and people are like, oh, look at you guys over there with your 2 people working on it, or 1 person working on the thing, and it's not as ironed out as the thing we're all working on together. Clearly yours is wrong. Even though that's not even how right and wrong works. It doesn't matter whatsoever how many people are working on the thing and how in depth it's done. Like, sometimes it's just false, and this is one of the instances where it is utterly just simply false. It picks up on things that are true, of course, and that's why we have this, but like, because it's under this premise that plate tectonics is true. The Earth did not expand. It was always the same radius. Thus, there was a time when this plate existed as we describe it. It's really that simple. There's no actual evidence except for what we see today and inference back to this false analysis. This is just false. It's not true. Okay. Now, the Farallon plate was an ancient oceanic plate. It formed one of the 3 main plates of Panthalassa, which is, I guess, the Panthallassic. Okay, so 180. That's not ancient, that's during the Earth's expansion process. So that was, if anything, it was this plate. It was just like Australia was adjacent here, and it was kind of just forming adjacent to it. I don't know why this is. It's false. It's just wrong. It's just so wrong that it makes no actual sense to use as a reference point. It's really, that's what plate tectonics has as issues. We're trying to actually understand reality through an Earth expansion model that is the actual history of Earth. At least scientifically, there may come a point when it's like, oh, like love is the answer, and none of this is actually true. Fucking stop arguing. Love was always the answer. It may reach that someday, but like right now, if we're going the path of science, which it seems we are, I mean, I certainly believe in logic and reason. Like, it doesn't really make sense to like have all this logic and reason and just abandon it and say, hearts, it's good, it's totally fine if you want to go do whatever you want. Just go shoot those people and go rob those people and go just utterly crash the economy. No, right and wrong matters. And this shit is utterly false. I mean, sometimes science is like close enough where it's useful, but in this case, it's really stretching the actual reality of the situation to be like probably unequivocally not describing almost anything that actually was true, just like the Big Bang. And sorry, but facts. Although there are aspects of the Big Bang that maybe can in this similar way be used to understand other things, it's just simply not true. It's simply not true, didn't happen, not true, didn't happen, same thing. Not true, didn't happen, false. Whereas Earth was attacked by a vortex weapon at ancient Dwarka and was caused to expand. True. I mean, unless, like I said, love is the answer. Pardon me for being an asshole then, see? Like, if I'm wrong and love is the answer, then I'm like the most wrong. But on the plus side, we figured that out together. You're welcome. So, about that love is the answer thing, right? Please don't hurt me. I'm just kidding. You guys can do what you want. I'm dead anyway, I think. No one gives a shit. I might as well be. No income for 8.5 years. What effect does that have on a person? Live off their savings, take out their retirement, work at some just purposeless leech on myself job just to get a paycheck while it kills me inside in the cars I drive, the engines. And just waste all sorts of shit just so people can fucking live their same life as yesterday without any change. You know what happens when we don't change? We fucking die. That's what happens. Just become brittle. Like, we need to be malleable and stretching. And I'm certainly just observing the reality of the situation. Learn from me, because I might have gone way off the like side and I'm swimming out in the Pacific. I'm like, why is no one helping me? Where the fuck is everyone? Swimming. It's like a shark comes by. I'm like, just exhausted. Fuck it, man. Just eat me, shark. Just eat me. I don't care anymore. I'm just tired, dude. I can't swim anymore. All the while, you guys are just partying over here, like, more of the same. We like false realities. Farallon Plate was an ancient oceanic plate. It formed one of three main plates of Panthalassa alongside the Phoenix Plate. Interesting that there's a Phoenix Plate, although it's less interesting that it's not up here. would be more interesting in that plate's position to me, because that's where like the dragon is and other things probably even now might be in that plate. I'm not sure. That these plates probably at this point are actually considered underneath things and are also probably conveniently shaped plates. Not gonna lie, almost assuredly they're conveniently shaped. There's no way they're not conveniently shaped. Oh, look at that. There's a mount chain in there. Voila. There's a plate that ends over here. The freaking plate. There's a plate that comes in. It just conveniently, like, doop, doop, mountain chain, and then goes back out. And then there's another plate here, of course, the Indian one. But because the Indian one doesn't explain this region, it's just, like, arbitrarily, there's another, like, little divot in one plate sticking out there. Get out of my face with that nonsense. Not true, dudes. You guys know it ain't so when you put it there. And then you acting all like fucking, we got the mic, we figured it out. But you didn't. But you hauled the mic because you put the fucking, we did it. See, did you see when we put the little line there and the line there? And we got it done. And even though we have no evidence for that but the mountain chain, there must be one, because we figured out, generally speaking, that the mountain chains that we don't understand how they're formed were formed by the way that we think that they were formed when they weren't formed that way. And so this one too. Over time, a central part of the Fallon Plate was completely subducted under the southwestern parts of North American plates. Okay, okay. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. Highly likely, whatever this Farallon plate is actually this current cutting across here, hitting Australia, and then running up in this way, and essentially putting a pressure into this current. They're not just like, so apparently they're not just adjacent to one another. The current cutting up this way physically underlays the current coming from over here so as to do what it was just saying, where it subducts under the northern part of American plate. Let's see if we can find an actual like current map of what it. Okay, aftershock zone. Oh. This looks very much like this. Here's Alaska, here's California. Here, I'm not sure where, that might go down too far. Certainly it's under North America. Is this the boundary? Like the cross section here kind of hides. This must be the boundary of Mexico, but maybe not. Uh, I don't know. It looks very close to the boundary of Mexico, but it may not be. Let's see. Because essentially this one here is pretty far up. Like Mexico's all the way down here. So whatever that was, it looked like it was more down here. It does seem to have the same shape as this. Like maybe it caused an inverse eruption into the mantle that then has a similar shape to like I don't know. I feel like we would see puncture holes to suggest that. Something that looks anomalous like this. Like this looks like there's a drainage into out of this, like up and out, and just kind of creating this thing where like the current was flowing into and out of. Like it was just boop. And the mantle was able to just bubble out and into to a point where it looked like that. It's where it would maybe do the same similar type of thing over here if it were to truly erupt. Although maybe it could it be like a volcano and erupt through it without like backflow. Where we maybe wouldn't see quite the same. I don't know. It just looks so much like it that I had to just kind of think about that for a second, I guess. Okay. Yep. Created terrain as a result of the Farallon plate moving terrains onto the continental margin as it subducts under the continent. Okay, okay. However, inconsistent with many terrain complexities. Yep, probably. Okay, fair. Because it's probably not true. It's probably just not true. I don't know what the. I'd have to look at the actual evidence to see what's going on here. Farallon. Why is that so big? What the? Okay, let's see if we can find some sequence of something real quick. I don't want to spend too long just looking at stuff. That's part of the problem. Okay. Really nothing that I immediately can like comprehend enough to. What's this? This is depth. Slices through the tomography model. Contours represent plus or minus percent, I guess, velocity of S waves, maybe. I don't know. I'm just totally guessing there. No idea. Oh, yeah. I'm sure I can find it. Yeah, S wave, that's a good sign that it probably is velocity of S wave then. Figure 2. Figure 2. High seismic velocity feature. Juan de Fuca slab. Probably though, so to go back to what they were saying about it subducting under, it probably is subducted under right here and only here. And because, and maybe a little bit here, because of that like protrusion where it, like I was saying, it goes out beyond because it bounces off and vibrates out this way. And so it overlays some of that oceanic layer. It just pushes into it and overlays enough where it at least would happen like in that region. As it said up here, the north remains of the Farallon plate. Okay, so there's not even a Farallon plate anymore. It is just broken into Juan de Fuca. Okay, so that's that plate that is actually kind of significant in that it has that abruptness to it over there. That's quite anomalous in appearance. Perhaps because it is a current that was flowing this way that then had all this mass on top of it that just kind of like caused it to snap down here and maybe bend. Just a thought. So the Juan de Fuca plate. Yeah, like this is inferred probably. This would be probably useful. I don't know what green is. What's green? That was not that page at all. Green, is that volcanoes, mountains? Presumably these are earthquakes in my mind. The orange-red type color ones. Whoa. Mega thrust earthquake. Carbon sequestration potential. Oh my god. Oh god, you guys gotta be kidding me. Stop being silly. We'll just pump it in this really highly unstable region and hope for the best. You mean like into the world, pump truth into it, highly unstable world where truth could rock the boat, maybe like that. Maybe you guys aren't the only silly ones doing the silly things. Okay, wand. Oh, so all these plates. Where's the Gorda plate then? Down here, Juan de Fuca plate. Okay. And then the Explorer plate is where? Maybe that. Vancouver Island. That's not Vancouver, right? No, this is Vancouver. Let's say Vancouver Island. Okay, Vancouver Island. This. So right here, explore Juan de Fuca Grotto or something. Whatever that one was. Explorer Seamount. Yeah. Yeah. What is here, though? I would expect this whole stretch to be related to the Juan de Fuca. What is this? Wow. That's like evidence that the Earth was draining water into the ocean bed when the ocean was still it was formed, but it was still forming, and so it's draining all the way down here before any of this had water in it, and up to the elevation that it did, it was just filling the ocean from off of the continents, especially looking like off of North America, where these glacier melts were occurring. Is that out here too? Like these features maybe formed mostly then? Because I don't think that's everywhere. I really don't. I don't think there's long protrusions like that everywhere. Although I'm a little surprised they're not here off right here. Like that we can see maybe there. And it's got deposits over top it maybe. That seemed to jet out pretty strong some reason. It's probably because the core is here and draining maybe was focused this way. And just there, yeah, there. Just focused out. Anything on this side of the core generally focused it over this way. For some reason. Maybe that's even tied to the exchange that was cutting across into South America. Like once this exchange could no longer occur into the mountains, instead it just drained from like a position here. Definitely not the same as around North America, where there are just rivers just extending into the ocean bed. Really not anywhere else. Not even here. Really, mostly looking like where I hear younger Dryas related things said. Like here, this one makes sense because this was probably filled with water and then it just drained. This would probably be sending a current this way to the mountains. But then once the current cutting across stopped, this would start to come back a bit, and maybe that played into just that this was so intense here so as to have that. Like, it probably doesn't really affect that location anymore, but enough at that time to actually shape it a little bit. But it's the same thing where there's very little stream type looking features. Here's a bit. This certainly drained. Seems like it, maybe. Okay. Well, what did we find in this video? I know there were some things that were pretty interesting, probably really interesting, really, if I'm being honest. It's just maybe a little less interesting to me personally, because I feel like I've saturated some of these things to the point where maybe I don't find things as wow factor as like I would have, and feel like people will when they realize my research exists. As like the moment happens, I'm just I'm just in a daze. I'm in a daze. I don't know what's happening anymore. I'm just really hoping for the best. I don't know what else to do. Just keep doing what I do. Change it up, I guess. Like I was saying, or die, apparently. Blame the world for my own stupidity. You guys didn't help. Although I really do need help. This is interesting right there. Just kind of perusing now. Pardon me. It's just what I do. Just peruse. Huh. Okay. I guess that, oh yeah, let's go back to this a little bit more. Let's see. Remnant, maybe, okay. Explorer plates separated roughly 4 million years ago. So that's, in terms of when it happened, that makes sense. Because it was generally after 66 million. Like, in terms of exactly when after, it's like, well, that doesn't have to be completely comprehensible in terms of why exactly 4 versus like 60 or even 80. Like I was saying, 80 seemed to be when the Rockies began to be formed. Maybe we could expect this like vibrational situation to get kind of out of hand enough where the Rockies begin to get formed, like when this is overlapping this, and maybe very quickly what is overlapping becomes structurally unsound and collapses in some way to separate the plates in the way that we say, but maybe not so rapidly that it wasn't until 4 million years. So it like supported it for a time and then it separated. The average depth of the Explorer plate is roughly 2,400 meters and rises up in its northern half to a highly variable basin between 1,400 meters and 2,200. Eastern boundary of the Explorer plate is being subducted under the North American plates. North American plates. Really? That's some cheating ass bullshit right there. This has got to be dissected into other parts. There's no way. They just casually say, ah, that's good enough. Good enough. Like this one certainly has plates missing. Queen Charlotte Fault. Queen Charlotte Fault looks to be tied to this. These arrows make sense because the current's coming down on this side, and then underneath there's a current cutting across here that then goes up here. And even there's... It must be slip faults the whole way, but I was going to say maybe it even doesn't resemble the same up-down type of thing here, down here, because the current more so went this way. Yeah, I mean, it looks okay. None of this is real then. It's all just the effects of this. It's all explained by currents. All explained by currents. All explained by currents. I did it. Let's do this. Let's see where this goes now. You know what I'm saying?